Welcome to Chapter 5, Human Resource Management. At the end of this presentation, you should be more comfortable in describing the human resource management process, understand how human resource managers determine needs, recruit and select employees, illustrate the various types of employee training and development methods, describe different types of pay systems and how to evaluate employees, understand important laws that affect the workplace, and you should be more comfortable also describing the key challenges that will face HR managers today and tomorrow. Human resource management is extremely important today because of the delicate balance of power, responsibility, and accountability that resides in the relationships a company develops with its employees. Because one of the most key important responsibilities a business has is with its relationships, it's important for human resources management to understand the ins and outs of what they're going to be faced with. The human resource management process is a 7-step process where the HR managers will determine the needs, recruit, select, train, develop, compensate, evaluate, and work with scheduling. When it comes to determining the HR needs, get that in a little bit more detail. They have an HR inventory. It's where there'll be a list of employees' names, skill sets, and education level, and this gives HR a good picture as to who they are, who they already have, and what abilities that their current employees have, so that they know exactly if they need to hire somebody for a future need, or if somebody has a skill set that's already with the company that can slide in and take over that position. It's also important to have a job analysis, and that's a study of what employees do who hold various jobs. If you're going to have a stock of resumes or a stock of idea of who's out there in the market that could possibly potentially be an employee, you want to make sure you know what exactly you want that employee to do. For example, are you hiring them to be a stock boy? Are you hiring them to be a financial analyst? You want to know exactly what the job is going to entail. That helps you, the HR manager, to know, due to changes in technology or the business, the number of new employees you're going to need and what their skills are going to be. It also gives you an ability to assess future supply. Besides knowing what the demand will be, HR needs to know what the number of available people in the workforce with the skills needed. For example, if you need to hire from out of town, or if you need to recruit in areas other than the area where the facility is located. And all this goes into factors that go into consideration. A strategic plan will address all areas of HRM, human resource management. With recruiting and selecting, again, recruitment is the set of activities used to obtain a number of right people at the right time. There are some challenges that face recruiting. For example, are there going to be union regulations? What's the corporate culture? Sometimes people with necessary skills are not available in the workforce. Again, when you're doing the assessing the future supply and demand for the workforce, you'll know if you need to go further out than your local area or what the case might be. Because sometimes the geographic area can make recruiting more challenging. And this is especially true with the globalization and the management of workers from different cultures. With selecting, you need to obtain application forms. The managers need to conduct interviews to see who is the most qualified for the job. And for those of you who are seniors or getting ready to graduate very shortly, this is one of the parts you're going through now, where you're going through, I'm telling them Briscoe, so hold on, where you're going through and you're filling out the applications, you're sending in your resumes, and you're trying to stand out. So look at it from the point of view of the human resource manager who's receiving your resume. What are you doing to stand out? What's going to get you to that next set of interviews and to finally have that employment test? And that's where they do any physical or drug testing, or even personality testing to see how you're going to fit with the corporate culture that they have. They're also going to do background checks. They're going to, a lot of times they will check your social media presence. They'll do physical exams, or they may even establish trial periods. For training and development, it's important to keep in mind that training employees is the key to success for their new job. If they don't know how to do their job, they're not going to be very good at it. And the difference between training and development is that training focuses on the short-term skills to do the job, whereas development focuses on the long-term abilities such as communication or management or working in teams. And some examples of training and development involve employee orientation. This is where they help initiate employees to the new company. It can be informal, it can be formal, depending on the corporate culture. There's on-the-job training. That's where you're watching and imitating others. That's one of the most valuable forms of training, since many people learn by doing. There's an apprentice program where a learner learns by working alongside an experienced employee. Once successful work is completed, that person becomes certified. Skilled crafts such as electricians, contractors use this type of training. There's also off-the-job training, and that could be internal or external programs that occur away from the workplace, such as conferences where you develop new skills, or online training, where you have the use of technology to train employees on aspects of the company. Internet courses. For my professional license, every 2 or 3 years we have to go through either face-to-face or online courses to recertify and to keep the continued education to keep my professional licenses. You also have vestibule training. This is a classroom situation where people are taught how to do the job on a simulated equipment. X-ray technicians, for example, will use vestibule training. There's also a job simulation you could use, which is the use of equipment that duplicates job conditions so employees can get used to the equipment. For example, airline pilots use this type of training. And there's also management development, which can include on-the-job coaching, an understudy position such as an assistant or job rotation to learn other jobs in the company, and other skill training such as how to lead and how to communicate. With compensating, companies compete for customers, but they're also competing for employees. That's why it's important when you're going out into the workforce and you're looking for your first job, you want to see exactly what is the market like. Are there a number of people that are going to be competing for that same position you are? Compensation does not only include pay, but it also includes things like benefits, as I mentioned. And compensation is meant to attract employees. They want the job to look attractive enough to them that they're going to take it. And they also want to retain employees. They want to make sure that the employees are being paid enough that they're not going to go somewhere else for more pay. And speaking of pay, there are a few different types of pay systems. For example, there's salary, where you're paid a fixed amount, for a specific period of time, whether it's a month or whether it's every 6 months, it's a salary. Hourly wage, where you've got a set dollar amount to work to be done on an hourly basis. Piecework, where the wage is based on the number of items produced per day. For example, an orchard or a farmer might pay on a piecework basis, such amount of dollars for every bushel of apples picked. There's also straight commission, Briscoe's favorite, where pay is based on a percentage of sales. Bonus plans, where extra pay is given according to accomplishing a set goal. Profit sharing, where annual bonuses are paid to employees based on the company performance. Gain sharing plans, where annual bonuses paid are based on achieving a specific goal, such as quality measures. There's stock options. And there's other types of compensation, such as fringe benefits, cafeteria-style benefits, where you have retirement plans, vacation pay, sick time, health insurance. A cafeteria is where a plan can be generated by an employee where they can pick and choose the different types of benefits they want up to a dollar amount that best suits them. And that's a great option for a diverse workforce. With scheduling, you have issues such as flex time, which gives employees freedom to choose when to work as long as they worked a certain number of hours per day or per week. Core time, which, for example, in a flex time program, this would be the time all employees are required to be at work. A compressed work week, working 4 10-hour days, and as opposed to working 7 days a week or 5 days a week. There's telecommuting, which is, for example, when somebody is going to work from home and they, with technology, they can go ahead and do the same thing from home that they're able to while they're at an office. There's job sharing, where you have two part-timers who might share the responsibilities for a regular one full-time person. And that can be more challenging to a company, but it is one of the options that are out there. With evaluation again is done in which the performance level of an employee is measured against standards. It's a little bit like receiving your grade with comments about how to improve. There are steps to effective performance evaluations. You want to make sure that you establish standards. You communicate those standards. For example, there's a rubric on Blackboard. Those are the standards. It's a project description. Those are the standards. And they've been communicated. So that's why I always tell the students, make sure you're looking on Blackboard to see the description and the rubric so you know how you're going to be evaluated. And then, of course, the third step is evaluating their performance. And usually through the use of a form, an employee is measured to see how well they meet the standards. Then it's important to discuss with the employee, go over the results, and see what can be done to improve performance, then take corrective action if necessary. These results are used to make decisions, because based on these results, should the person be promoted? Should they get a raise? Do they need more training? Do they need more development? Or do they need to go out the door and not come back? And that brings us to, there are some very important laws relating to the human resources process and the human resources job. For example, there's the Title VII, Equal Opportunity Employment Act, which prohibits discrimination in hiring, firing, compensation, training, term, conditions, or privileges based on race, religion, creed, sex, or national origin. And there's also affirmative action, which is encouraged by the EEOC and designed to right past wrongs, reverse discrimination. There's the American with Disabilities Act, which is protection for people with disabilities, requires employers to give same consideration and reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities, such as modifying equipment or widening of doorways. There's age discrimination laws, which protects people that are 40 and over against discrimination in the workforce. And these are all issues, some of these are the biggest issues that are facing HR managers today. Again, the Title VII, the ADA, age discrimination. As they take care of their processes, as they go about their business, they need to make sure that the business is staying compliant and is taking due responsibility to manage their relationships with the employees, prospective employees, and existing employees. And it brings up a number of challenges that are facing the HR managers today and tomorrow. Unions. Unions were formed years and years ago to help protect workers because of unfair conditions. A group of people had more power than an individual, so unions were formed as a bulk negotiating bloc. This is where they negotiated wages, benefits, safety issues, negotiated labor management agreements, also known as a labor contract. It's a contract between management and union. And it's important to also know it doesn't always have to be a written contract. You could have an unwritten contract, a psychological contract between employer and employee that is just as enforceable as a physical contract. Workers are also able to strike. when workers refuse to work, when it attracts public attention and can cause a company to slow down or cease to work. They can also boycott. It was an encouragement of members and to not buy products involved in a labor dispute. There's a lockout that's possible, which is an attempt by management to put pressure on the union by closing the business. That happens. And then there are steps to mitigate all this, through mediation, arbitration, injunction, which is when a court order directs someone to do something or refrain from doing something, such as forcing workers to go back to work. And then there's also strike breakers that could mitigate dealing with unions, called scabs by the union. And these are replacement workers that cover what striking workers are not doing. Another issue is executive compensation. And that's the difference. It involves a difference in pay between workers and the CEOs of companies. Sometimes there's a great variance. You could have the CEO could be making thousands of times the amount that the average low-level worker makes. Some people think that the differential in the United States is too different. It's too great. Then there's the work-life balance. And that's the idea that workers must have a life outside of work to be most productive. I have never met any worker that has problems at home that does not also have problems in the workforce at some point. So if you have a good home life, good life outside of work, it's going to spill over and it's going to create a good life at the workplace. So HR managers need to try to make sure that workers have a good balance between the time they spend at work and the time they spend at home. Comparable worth is a big issue, today and tomorrow, and that involves pay equity, because women generally earn less than men doing the same job. It has improved, but there's still an issue. There's still the issue of sexual harassment. Sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, verbal, other conduct of a sexual nature, or just having a harmful work environment, something Bristol obviously does not agree with, apparently. So it's very important to make sure that you're looking at whether the harassment is of a sexual nature or if it's still creating a harmful work environment. Thank you for listening to the whole PowerPoint. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or stop by and see me in my office. Thank you.